Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to day 4 of Reconfiguring Your Library Program, Embracing Uncertainty. We are really happy to be here, and I'm happy that some of you have been able to join us all 4 days. The recordings are still processing for yesterday, so hopefully those will be up and that today's will work. But on day 4, did I not put my day 4? Oh, there it is. I reversed my slides. Day 4, we are going to be talking about teaching and learning models and considerations. Right now, there are basically 3 formats that New York State has named. And these are pretty common. One is the in-person instruction, which is obviously face-to-face, normal kids coming to school and teachers teaching, although that would still need to have social distancing in place. Oh, I forgot to ask you if you could please make sure you put your name and school district in the chat. That would be useful for those of you who are with us in real time. So there's face-to-face, in-person. There is the hybrid model, which right now, for most K-12 schools, hybrid is meaning that some students come in, like 50% come in and 50% stay home. We're not quite sure what that means instructionally, whether or not they will be being taught the same thing at the same time. That's going to look different in each school building, I would imagine, and maybe even for each teacher. There also are different things that you could have. You could have it that you are teaching one lesson, and maybe you have it in a flipped version where you record your lesson and the students watch that. But when they're in person, you're helping them integrate the lesson or the material. So we're really not sure how the hybrid's going to look. And then the other would be remote or virtual instruction, and that would be where there is no in-person teaching. The teacher could be in the school or in the classroom, or the teacher could also be remote. So that's what we're focusing on today, and I definitely want to give a shout out to Dr. Jen Cannell, who taught us about some of these, especially this particular day, transitioning into the unknown at a SLISA School Library System Association Professional Development, and she is the director of the Graduate School Media Program at St. Fisher's College. So she introduced this to me. It was something that was brand new. It is widely, or it has been being used, I'm not sure about how widely, on the post-secondary, in the college level classes. It's called HighFlex. You can do some research on it, the HighFlex model or the HighFlex, I guess it's an instructional model for teaching. And what it is on the post-secondary level is that you have the 3 different models that we have: face-to-face, synchronous. Synchronous is which you're teaching live, but not necessarily in person, and asynchronous, which is where you're recording a lesson. So that would be how your teaching is going to happen, and whether the students are with you or in a separate location. And that kind of fits in really nicely with what we just talked about, most of our schools are doing. Face-to-face would be in person. Synchronous and asynchronous are both considered virtual, but in the college level, the students have the choice of what they are going to do. So you might be a professor of introduction to college level research, And you may have students signed up for one section. Some of them may choose to come to class and be face-to-face. Some of them may watch your lesson on the computer while you're teaching it, so synchronous but remote. And others could choose to watch your lesson after the fact, which would be asynchronous. That sounds overwhelming to me as a teacher and as a professor. I think I would have just felt overwhelmed, and I think that's probably the feeling that most of you have right now, especially when thinking about the hybrid. You can wrap your brain around, okay, I have students in front of me, I'm going to teach them, or I have students who are remote, and I'm going to teach them either synchronously or asynchronously. This model, though, can really help us to um, get a, I guess, a nice frame around how to look at how our models might work this year. So what I did is I just took her model and I put, we have the face-to-face, which is in person, the live, and the recorded. We talked about the other day using the same language that your administrators are using, or that your teachers are using, or that your parents are using. You want to make sure that however you're referring to things, that it fits the model that that people are using, and you can adapt that however you need to. I am a Venn diagram fan. And this Venn diagram where you have the little candy corn looking blue center, that is our sweet spot. That is what we are going to look for when we're doing a lesson plan. Because if you can do that, if you can plan what your teaching is in that sweet spot, then it doesn't matter whether you're going to be in person, live, or recorded. You're going to be able to flex. That's where the flex comes in, the high flex. Flex into in person, hybrid, or remote teaching, right? So that sweet spot is what we're going to go for. And what helps me when I think about that, because I am a Venn diagram person, is it doesn't have me bouncing from, okay, this is what I'm going to do if I'm face to face. This is what I'm going to do if I'm in a hybrid model, or most of us don't know what we would do in a hybrid model. And this is what I'm going to do if I'm remote. It gives us that target to look for. That's the bullseye. And every lesson is not going to be right in that center. And that's okay too, because you can see that, you know, in the shaded areas, you know, maybe we're going to go for face-to-face and live instruction because that's what our district is telling us to do. Or maybe asynchronous is the only way we can do it, whether it's in person or remote. So you're going to have to, you know, obviously see where your target is. But if your target ends up in that sweet spot, then it really doesn't matter what format you have to teach in. Now, how do you do that, right? Um, Setting priorities is what we've been talking about for a couple of days. Figuring out what your intent is, figuring out what your priorities are for your program and how that aligns with what the school or district priorities are. Then being very specific in choosing the skills that you're going to teach. Now, some of these are the types of things that we talk about um, in library school, right? When we are taking our beginning classes and we're really just learning, you know, what it is that our curriculum is to teach. But in many ways, that is what we need to do. We need to go back to that, you know, that learning phase so that we can be prepared to take on all of the new things that are happening in response to COVID-19 and the rest of the things that are happening in our world right now. So setting priorities is what I have really tried to focus on and bringing you through that process. Now that we know what our priorities are, we may have to go back. It's not necessarily a linear process. You may have picked a skill yesterday. You may have looked at one of those assessments and started to think about hybrid design. I mean, not hybrid design, backwards design on how you can incorporate that into a lesson. But if you want to make that lesson into a high flex lesson, you may need to go back and rework it. You may need to pick something different. And so you want to be ready to do that. I can't answer my phone right now. Okay, so setting priorities. Now, I've mentioned I learned a lot from my teacher, Heather Ashamara. One of the things that she teaches is that obstacles, which this is a huge obstacle, COVID-19 and all of this havoc that it's wreaked on our education system, and how we do our jobs and how we teach. But obstacles can be opportunities, okay? I think that this high flex model could be something that we could incorporate as a way to increase our collaboration with other teachers, in order to be efficient in serving the largest population that we can in our school at multiple times. As things get tighter, it's going to be something that if we can offer this type of flexibility to our administrators, it makes us invaluable. And then when we talk about embedding professional development or providing professional development to our teachers and our districts, this could be something that we become an expert in, and then help our teachers be able to make that transition to high flex, going from one to the other and being responsive to what happens. I don't envision that K-12 schools will ever leave that as a choice for students. And I kind of hope they wouldn't do that, but really our parents are making that choice right now. Parents are saying, no, I don't want my child to go in person. I want them to be remote. But they are making them choose that for generally a defined period of time. It seems like what I read and watched about high flex on the college level is that students could choose from day to day what they choose to do, and I don't imagine that would work well in public school, at least. So, but it still can be an opportunity for us. Yes, there are plenty of obstacles, but we have learned to be very adaptive in our profession. And I think we are really at that point where it's time that other people see that. We've been trying to get them to listen, but maybe we have an opportunity right now to provide something that no one else is really thinking about. So, what do we need to consider? Because when we look at, we have these three different modalities of teaching and learning, whether it be in person, live, or recorded, or hybrid or remote. We have to think about what our technology needs are. I would see posts on social media about teachers that didn't have reliable enough internet, or strong enough internet to be able to stream a lesson, and they would be in their car doing so in a parking lot at a library or at a McDonald's, or students who don't have devices that they can use at home. And there was just something recently that popped up on social media about two kids that were outside of a fast food restaurant doing their schoolwork. They had devices, but they didn't have good internet. Um, we have to think about this. And it's not necessarily that other people aren't. I think the technology directors are really doing their best to provide the technology needs. But I was in a meeting where they were talking about having students, this was early on as they were trying to plan for the upcoming school year, where they talked about having some students maybe in the library, the other half of a class in the classroom, and all the students watching the teacher at the same time with a lesson that was being live streamed. They don't have that reliable or strong enough internet connection in most schools to be able to handle that type of bandwidth that would be necessary for live streaming in multiple classrooms across the building. There is an infrastructure that's required. And even using tools like Zoom. I mean, the first day of school for many uh, areas in the country was last week, and Zoom had major outages. Um, you know, we weren't preparing to go to school this way or to teach and learn this way. It kind of just happened, and we're playing a little bit of catch up. So, what are the technology needs, and what are the technology resources? I would add to that. What resources do we need or can we use for our lessons? Resources meaning, do students need ebooks? Do they have textbooks at home? Are there YouTube videos, or do you have a database that can be used? Can students access things at one time? Is it simultaneous use? These are, really complicated questions. We weren't purchasing materials necessarily in preparation for this, and everyone's trying to catch up. So Lynn said, yeah, that's what's going to hit hard, and that's why it's so hard to order. Yeah, it is. And so I have been looking for Nassau BOCES as to what kind of shared resource collection I could create. Is there something with Mackin or Overdrive that I could purchase certain ebooks, for grade level, so that everyone would have access? We have a little bit of state aid that can be used on things for our school library system, so that is something I have been considering. The problem is that on a shared collection, no publisher, or really no publishers, none of the major publishers allow shared collections to be simultaneous use. So you can purchase simultaneous use for your building, but I can't purchase simultaneous use for all of our buildings. Yes, and Lynn put in the chat box that so there's been so many free resources given, and we have shared those out as well. And some of them were fabulous. I mean, Overdrive allowed 100 books, I think, on Sora, which is their app for K-12. Lots of publishers opened up various resources or lessened their copyright, fair use for videos and read alouds. Epic is one that I guess has always been free on a certain level, but they opened it for free for teachers. But New York State has the EdLaw 2D, which requires all of the vendors who are in schools, especially, obviously ebook or database or any sort of internet-based resource or program, to be compliant with the privacy and security laws that they have for students. Epic is not something that can go through that. They want their students to sign up. They want personal emails. That is a resource that parents have to purchase. It is not something that a school can do. And by doing that, that means it's not a resource that you can use in your classroom or library. So the resources, we need to think about that. And then the logistics. And the logistics is a part that's really difficult to wrap my brain around. You know, I had trouble doing that with how am I going from, you know, working from home, working at the office. I have things that we bring back and forth. It's, you know, it's logistics issues and how are the students moving into the library, or how are you going to be on camera for the students who are virtual, but also be making eye contact with the students who are over here. You know, it's logistical, something we have to think about. I remember during one of our summer meetups where actually, I guess it was the spring still, school had not ended, everyone was still teaching. And one of our librarians shared how she did her first read aloud. She recorded herself doing something, and you know, she was showing us how she decided to show the pages. Because you want to make sure that the kids feel engaged too. I mean, you know, right now I'm talking, and I'm generally a pretty engaging kind of person, I think. But you're staring at a screen that has a slide up on it, and it's basically me just lecturing. You know, a third grader or a ninth grader or a senior is probably not going to be paying attention to that. It's really hard to figure out how to manage students in these types of settings. Um, you know, if you have an interested student, I mean, you people are choosing to watch this or to participate. That's not necessarily what's happening, and we know those kids with their devices. I mean, lots of commercials even show everybody's multitasking, and I do the same thing. So we have to think about that logistics piece. So here is a slide that says some of the things I have, you know, what to consider detail-wise for each of those things. The technology needs. Computer. Do they have computer? Can it be video? Are they going to be able to hear? Are they going to be using the chat box? So this is something that we had to figure out in our office. I have 5 staff members, including myself, in library services here at Nassau BOCES. They do not want us to meet together in person. So any department meeting that we have still has to be on a virtual basis. Well, when we were at home, everybody had a laptop, a camera, a microphone. The desktops in our office don't have that. So, okay, well, you don't necessarily need to see somebody, but you do need a microphone. Our desktops don't have microphones, they have speakers. Well, we were able to get webcams. Great, they had webcams. The webcams have speakers, but my staff is all in cubicles, all lined up. So if they were all listening to this meeting right now at the same time, and we're having a chat going back and forth, it's going to echo between them, and it's going to pick up everybody else's voices. So how are you going to manage that? Well, we are out of headphones right now, and they're trying to order headphones, but you know, there's some supply chain delays. So I went ahead and I ordered some really cheap earbuds for everybody. They're not really working as well as we thought they would. So, you know, these are those really specific minutia details that are going to throw monkey wrenches at us. we have to kind of expect that the technology isn't going to go smooth, which I think most of us know already. So somebody said, what about using your phone system? So I don't know how that would work. I mean, we could just do a phone meeting for our staff for sure. Many of us were using our own personal devices for the meetings. For a while, I was doing both. But like in a meeting like this, where I want to be able to share my screen and go to links, you know, that's not good enough. So to be on my phone is not really good enough for what I need it to do. So there's just all sorts of little considerations. So the privacy was the big thing as well. Like, what if we're discussing something that we don't want, you know, anybody walking past us to go to the restroom to hear? So, you know, these are the types of things with students, the things to consider about technology. The resources. Where are you going to post your resources? How are you going to make sure that the students who come to class have the same access as the ones who are maybe at home? Obviously, if you're in your library and you have, you know, a cart, or even if you're going into a classroom and you have a cart of books, that's one thing. But if you have students that are on hybrid teaching or completely remote teaching, how are you giving access to them? So equitable access, that is something that we need to think about, not only in terms of the technology end, but what about the students that have special needs? We have students that require vision, you know, adaptations or accommodations. There are other learners who have, you know, maybe a learning disability or dyslexia. Who's addressing the resources for those students, and how can we best do that? Now, we're really fortunate. A lot of the library resources, the online library resources, the databases, they have things built into them that can assist students who have a special learning need. What about the teachers? You know, how can the teachers access it and push it out to their students? And what system is going to best serve the greatest number of people? I think that is what we need to consider when we're talking about resources for that high flex model. And then the logistical considerations. What classroom protocols are needed? Kids are going to need to learn these things. So if, you know, and how is it going to work? If you're on a cart and you're pushing into a classroom, do you want the students logged in beforehand? Are you going to have a link on their existing Google Classroom and ask the teacher to include the library in that? Or are you going to have your separate Google Classroom? Or I had used Seesaw for a while. I had, when I was in the K2, and I had more than 10 classes. And I was only allowed to have 10 classes. So what we did is we had my library aide create an account. But so we had 20 classes, but I would need to log out of my account, log into her account, make sure that you know, I was prepared before the next class came in. Well, I was in my library and I had a couple of minutes in between classes. But if you're on a cart and you're doing that with a laptop or on the teacher's computer, all of these little details need to be thought about when you're designing a high flex model lesson. And what is the backup plan when you cannot connect to the internet? Well, you know, that's kind of hard for us, I think. You know, it's not like you have one class for the whole day or that you're teaching many. You know, oftentimes we have one shot with a class, and or maybe a couple of days with a larger class or a high school class. But how are you going to get that lesson out to them if there isn't, you know, if there's a problem with the internet? Assigning a student to chat, that might be workable, but what are you going to do if a student doesn't comply with the set expectations? Or are you going to have that student monitor just for questions? Or is that student going to, let you know who's controlling the chat? Or, it's just something that um, you can think about. So Lynn said, if there's no internet, you can't reach the remote students. Well, I was up in Maine for the beginning of the pandemic, and what they did is there is not reliable internet in many households in Maine. So their remote teaching was done with packets. Every week, the school would have a packet pickup day and a packet drop-off day. The teachers were going into the building at times to create the packets, and they did it by packets. So if you had a lesson like that, you could create in a high flex model, you could have something ready to be delivered or picked up if a parent, didn't have internet access for that week. They had it as a routine thing, so they were used to that, and that's why they didn't expect students to have the internet access. We tend to expect that they will. I know that, they expected that teachers all had access to internet and devices. So hybrid, yeah. So hybrid, it could work, like packets or something like that could actually work really well if the hybrid is that you have some students in person and some students doing a different lesson remotely, and then they switch. Something like that. But if it's that you're teaching simultaneous remote and in person, you're right. They're not going to be able to get that because you would need some lead time to get the students that packet. Yeah. Districts in New York are required to provide internet to those that don't have. I'm not sure how that actually like in the rural areas, that's not even possible. So we have some of the school library systems in areas where there is no internet available and cell service is very spotty. Students who live in a remote area may not have internet available to them. And certainly it could be that they don't have reliable internet. So broadband access is really what I'm talking about. They may say that we've opened up internet access in our parking lot. That's one of the things that districts do. On Long Island, I know that almost every district has done their best to get devices and hotspots if need be. That's what some of the more advanced or citified areas. I had been working in Bangor, which is a city it's a small city. It's really sweet how they think they're a big city, but they were providing hotspots to their students that didn't have internet access. But if you live in an area where there is no coverage, we don't have that problem on Long Island, but that is a problem in many other areas. So so those logistical considerations, and here's the thing, there is no way that any single person, and even unlikely that any small group of people is going to be able to consider every single possible problem that might occur. We're all in a learning situation here, and we're going to do the best we can to consider all the possibilities, and then we're going to find out what we forgot or what we missed or what we didn't think about, especially when you're looking at, the people who are making these decisions are often of the same socioeconomic class, of the same high education level. We may not realize all of the things that go into uh, what we're asking of families, or what we're putting on families. So that's why it's really important to make sure that there is a parent voice and a community voice coming into these things as we review and see how we can improve. So I found these two little quotes here. This is, just the way it is. And I have to say, my license plate used to be LIV2LRN, live to learn. And this is kind of what it was referring to. People say, oh, you're a teacher? Well, yes, but we always have to learn, unlearn, and relearn. It's all about, getting attached, letting go, attaching again to something else. That is the life process. And this guy, who I'm not really sure who he is, Alan Toffler, said the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And I think we know that. Librarians have been teaching that for decades, certainly as long as I've been in this field. We know learning new things is the way that we grow and we move forward. And so what we're doing is we're modeling for our students. One of the things I want to do tomorrow is try a breakout room in here, because I haven't done that yet. I've been in breakout rooms, but I have never facilitated one. And I want to do that partly because maybe you've never done it either. And this way, then I can help you out if I need to. But we are going to go back to the beginning a little bit with a high flex instructional plan worksheet, a lesson planner document. And I know that I kind of stopped filling these out and writing lesson plans unless I was in a new building or getting a formal observation. I had little notes that I would keep on a pad or on an index card. But since it's something that we're doing that is brand new, I think that it would be beneficial to work with a worksheet for us. I am going to switch my screen share, and I am going to share the link to this document as well. Oops. So let me, okay, so hopefully that link will work and you can go in. I'm going to suggest that you make a copy of this. You can do that by going into File and make a copy. So this way you can save a blank one in your
access. It's not giving us access. You have to make
it
at least viewable.
Oh.
With the link.
Okay, let me. Oh, look at that. Only people change to anyone with the link can view. I'm going to say edit. Done. Okay, so you want to try that link? Oh, maybe I might need to get a new link.
So people don't edit it. And then it just forces them to make a copy.
Yeah, I made a copy too, so. Okay, do you need, let me see.
It works.
It works? All right, I put it in again just in case. Okay, so this is something that actually Jen Cannell shared with us, and she tried to make it appropriate for library media specialists. So she did put some certain things, and and links that you could put in. Um, I really think that it would be valuable to do this for at least one lesson. I also think it's valuable to use as something that you would be able to share with teachers or share with your administrators. Because if you made a PDF of this document, just so that somebody wouldn't necessarily edit it, but if you saved it as a PDF, you could even send something similar out to your students for your family so that they would understand. As a parent, if I am watching a video with my student or having my student watch a video and I'm trying to help them, I think this would be very useful for me to know what are the skills that you're trying to teach. The lesson plan piece, maybe you would leave out, but maybe not. Maybe you would want to put, here's the basics. This is what I intended for you or for your child to do and learn, the basic steps, and have the links right there. Um, it does take a little skill. This week I've been practicing monitoring my own chat and copying links into, the chat box. That was something that I always had somebody else doing for me. It's way easier if somebody else does it, let me tell you, because I'm trying to look and engage, but also watch the time, watch letting students into the classroom and watch the chat box. It's a new skill of multitasking. And we're up to it. We're definitely up for it. So what I'd like to do, is I like the assigning a student. Yeah, I think I will do that going forward too. What I'd like to do is make sure that you get a copy of this. But does anybody have any questions or anything in here that, they're not sure about?
Well, it says on the lesson plan part, to use your own template or consider including the following elements. I think, like our school district, they have a specific lesson plan format that we have to use. So I guess
Mm-hmm.
you could actually just link it right into the box and, the actual one, as opposed to putting the whole thing in there. Because like if you're going to give it to parents, they don't really need to see that part, all the
Right.
other stuff. They just need to know what the lesson is and the resources you're using. So I like this, for that part. And then if you have to give it to an administrator or whatever, because you are being observed, like I love the fact that I don't have classes because I don't really need to do lesson plans until I'm being observed. But I
Right.
have like lesson plans are in my head that I do every year. But now I have to do new ones because like, or just, it's different stuff, but now it's in a new format. And I just
Definitely. And
pre-recording everything. I'm actually, I told you yesterday, I'm presenting at our superintendent's conference on Tuesday about using Google Meet. And I used Wakelet to set up, here's this, how to use this in it. I found a video and it's great. Wakelet is like, I love it. It has so many new features. I haven't even learned them all. Um, as a matter of fact, they were having a webinar right now as we were speaking. I was like, oh, shoot. But they'll do it again. They've done it. They have this new feature called Spaces, and I wanted
oh,
to see how is it working. But now they make it that you can collaborate with someone and they don't have to have an account. You can choose the option to allow them to edit or delete, but you don't want to do that when you do with kids because they can only edit or delete their own stuff. So it's really
right.
a really good tool that you can use for this hype flex thing because you can actually have your kids, you can make it like a hyperdoc and you
Mm-hmm.
can just put everything there that you need. And you can even save it as a PDF if you want to, or you can link it to your website or to your Google Classroom. And with Flipgrid, it's all connected. It all works together. So I was doing
Yeah.
that, and then they said that there's an extension for the breakout room for Google Meet, but I couldn't get it to work. So I posted it, and I said, if you can't get it, here's the alternative, because the alternative is kind of like, you know, hyperlink and make your own, and they show you how to, you know, make the code that comes from the Google Classroom, and then you can make it. But when the girl was showing how it worked, I'm like, oh, that's so cool, but I couldn't get it to work on my Chromebook. I don't know. I don't know if I wasn't doing it right or something, but
You know,
I would
there's,
love to
it
see
sounds
more.
really cool, but sometimes it's a browser issue or it just wasn't working for
Yeah.
that moment, you know,
But if
and
it's working
those are
in
the types of things that
Chrome,
come up.
and I'm like, I am Google Chrome. This is all Google. I'm using a Chromebook. I'm like, what else can it be? You know, like it's made for this. Why is it not working? So
Right.
already I had to have alternatives, and I'm trying to figure out how to teach it. And they're like, oh, you want to give the, my principals, like, you want to give them time to actually do it, you know, like, you know, have them. So I was like, and that's kind of how I did, like, I did help desk for my staff during the pandemic. And that's the way I was working it. And hopefully it'll work. I'm just,
Yeah, and you know, we learned a lot during the pandemic when we were on the emergency, you know, remote teaching. It was like it was panic, but it was, we did learn a lot, and those types of things are definitely going to help. But that was emergency basis. So to be able to see a way to plan and the things that we need to consider, that's how we grow into, you know, a more effective teaching. I'm not sure if we're at the level of best practices yet. I'm not sure if we even know how to define best practices in these multiple formats yet. But we're moving towards it by being able to come in and say, these are, you know, this is my instructional plan. Yeah, it is going back to the beginning a little bit, but we're also in a new format, and we're including new people. You know, there, you know, some places are having somebody who's a virtual teacher and somebody who's the in-person teacher. You know, there's so many different ways that this can look. We need to do our best to have it written down. This way we can also take notes on what worked and what didn't work, so that whatever things look like next year, we'll be able to prepare for a little bit more. One piece for hybrid is to require that all students have their camera on for the Google Meet. So that, I think, I have been reading a few things about that. And yes, that is nice because it's good to see people's faces. But there is some talk of that being a little bit intrusive, that some students might really have a lot of anxiety about doing that. And that it could also be classist in some level. You know, if your kid is sitting in their car in the library parking lot for remote, that might be an issue. Or what if, you know, their family is hoarders and that's what the background is? It's just something to consider. If you have a student that's hesitant to do that, just consider that there might be reasons for it and that that might need to be explored. If they can't turn their camera on, I believe that you can upload a picture for Google accounts. So if there was even a picture or a little icon that they could use that would represent them, I just would just consider that there might be reasons why students don't want to share. Okay. So today we are just about done with the lesson piece of it. And you know, I'm saying it's homework, but like obviously I've said all along, there is no, you know, it's really just work for you to think about as you work towards integrating this, hopefully into your curriculum. So with keeping our intent and our priorities in mind, um, I would like for you to be able to create a HyFlex instructional plan for one of the Empire State Information Fluency Continuum skills that we had looked at yesterday. Using that sheet would be a really nice way to start, filling it in. It's something you can print out and take notes on. It's something you can fill out online. You can put it into Word or whatever you're comfortable in. You can have it on your iPad. Um, and it's really about fleshing out how you can keep yourself aligned in this new way of teaching and learning. Because to me, that's the most effective way to reach kids. Everybody is in a little bit of a chaotic and uncertain area. But when people feel that they are being held in alignment by what you're doing, like I know she's driving the bus and she's going to get us there. They tend to fall in line a little bit better. When you have somebody at the front of the class who's a hot mess and confused and not sure what they're doing, um, really not sure and not planned. Kids know that. That's why they take advantage of substitute teachers sometimes, right? Not all subs can walk in and say, okay, this is what your teacher left for me to do today, and this is what we're going to do. And they're reading it, and they may not know, but they have that confidence that we're going to get through the day, and we're going to do it together, and we're going to get things done. If that sub is just like, yeah, I've never done this before, I don't know what I'm doing, kids can sense that. And I think it's more of a sense thing than it is a, oops, oh, I don't know how this is going to work. But if you have their buy-in and say, look, we've never done this before, but I know we're going to get through and we're going to teach some things and we're going to try some things out and we're going to see what works, that confidence in you is going to make them feel more at ease and make them want to join you on that journey, for however long it is, whether it's a 15-minute lesson or a 40-minute lesson. Although 40 minutes, I think most students, especially in hybrid or virtual, are going to have a hard time with. So does anyone have any questions or anything that they felt like I didn't cover over the last 4 days that I should cover tomorrow? Oh yeah, 90 minutes. 90 minutes is a long time. That you're going to definitely need to build in some interactive or fun things. That's tough. 90 minutes. It's tough for me, 90 minutes. So any questions about anything we've gone over to this point?
Can you just put the beginning slide with the Venn diagram, the triple Venn diagram?
Oh, sure. You want the one with the candy corn, the sweet spot?
No, I got that one. I think is that the very first one? Yeah.
No, this is the very first one.
That one. I got the other one. I was just trying to screenshot it. So.
Yeah, and I did watch.
They go, so I try to grab a screenshot so I know what the heck I'm talking about.
I do the same thing. I do the same thing. And if you do some research and just even Google HighFlex, there are probably, it looks like it came out, like the concept came out a few years ago, but it looks like only maybe the last year or so has it started to get momentum in college and university level classes. And even at that, they've been doing a lot of professional development on it. So there were some videos since the pandemic started, because obviously colleges have the same issues that we have right now with whether students should be in person. And yeah, some schools, some are doing better than others. But yeah, I think that it's a really interesting way to think about it. And I think it could be really helpful. To me, it felt like it unlocked that like, I don't see how we could possibly do this, that it unlocked a path towards at least making it through whatever it is that we're coming up to this year.
I
So
just want, can I just say a funny scenario that happened? I was on the committee for technology in my school district, and in the beginning of last year, they said, oh, we want to do something to get everybody to go on, and we're going to have lessons and stuff. And we're going to do a big thing, and let's shoot for March. And I said, had we known, oh my goodness, that everything was going to be so tech savvy, and we would be making videos of everything and anything to show people and everyone how to use things, what a premonition that became. Like,
well, you
I've been
know,
going, oh, well, we don't have to do that now because we are doing it anyway.
yeah, but you know, it is interesting how we get these little inklings of things that are going to happen sometimes, and you know, sometimes it's just coincidence. But you know, I think we have been moving towards these things. We've just been afraid to take that step, you know, that real like commitment to it. I think our certification area has been one of the groups at the forefront of learning about technology and everything. The classroom teachers, they've had a harder time, I think, with all of this for many reasons. We were ready, you know, we've been using things like Wakelet and Padlet and, you know, Symbaloo when it came out, and let's try this and let's try that. And, you know, here I have this great tool I can help you use. So, so yeah, it's been interesting. So, okay, well, I am going to end the recording and stop sharing my screen. And hopefully this one will process and get up quickly.